is worse than you think. It might even be worse than Wish, and I know that sounds crazy, but as you can see this time, the movie was so bad that I, as a professional musical theater performer and songwriter, could not handle it myself. I had to bring Hunter with me, and we're gonna give you a perspective that I guarantee you are not gonna find anywhere else, because now we have a bozo to bozo communication over here. There are two of us instead of just me. That is how bad the movie was. I needed actual help. And as you guys can see, I didn't even put any effort in my look today.
They didn't put effort into the movie. Why do we put effort?
Exactly. I need to save every last drop of makeup because that $20 movie ticket really sent me back, okay, you guys? And so I just want to establish the expectations that I had before I go in and introduce Hunter a little more, because this is the first time that Hunter has been on this channel. But if you've come from my main channel, you know who Hunter is already. So in terms of expectations, I did not have high hopes, okay? And they didn't even meet the bar of my expectations, which were on the floor. The expectations were in Hades, and they were down in Tartarus. They were the lowest you could possibly get from the surface. And so just to establish this, okay, I made a news video about Moana 2 when it was announced last year, okay? It has not been that long. It was 11 months ago. It was not that long, right? And so there were a couple red flags. First of all, retooled TV series into a movie because Disney executives thought it was too good to be a TV show. Totally not because Wish and Raya failed, and so Disney needed something to pad out the Disney Princess brand situation, right? So that was the first thing.
You know, honestly, I didn't mind that because it felt nostalgic. I felt like I was watching a
Return to Jafar.
Yeah, I felt like I was watching a VHS copy of Return to Jafar. It looks worse, Mulan 2. It looks worse. The songs are worse.
Right? Cinderella 2 was a TV show retooled together. So that was the first red flag, but I was like, okay, you know what? Even though sometimes it has been bad, there are times where the Disney TV shows have been good, like the Tangled series, right? And so that was a red flag, but it wasn't a total miss, right? The second thing was that the original cast did not originally return for the TV show, and so they would be dubbing. Now that's a first complaint that I have, and I want to get it out of the way now. The dubbing was genuinely awful at some points, where I could see that the lips were not matching with what the characters were saying, and it was really distracting. It got better after the first episode, but so the reason why Hunter's here is because I don't take notes during the movie because I don't have press privileges, right? And so I make little notes on my fingers, right? And when I ran out of fingers, I knew that Hunter had to help.
15 minutes into the movie, Cal leans in. I thought she was going to make another comment of that was bad, but instead she leans in and says, hey, do you want to come over?
Can you help me, please? Because there were just so many things, and that was the first one, is that the dubbing was genuinely awful. Sometimes it did get better as the movie kept going, but you could tell that someone else originally said Moana's lines. So that was another red flag, but again, not the end of the world. Anime is dubbed, right? I've seen anime dubs before.
But it was newer anime dubs, that's fine. It was it was approaching at times, because in retrospect, I don't even think it connected for me when I was watching it, that oh, the dialogue is weird here.
Yeah, it's because somebody else performed it. They're just mimicking the other voice actors. Imagine that you got cast as Moana in the TV show, and then you got kicked out. I'm sure that girl got paid, but imagine having this life-changing sort of role where you get to embody this Disney princess, and then your lines got kicked out and redubbed over. So that was another red flag, and it turned out to be true. That was accurate. The third red flag was that Lin-Manuel Miranda did not return for the music, and what we got was barely even bargain bin Lin-Manuel Miranda, okay? Barlow and Bear, who I truly want the best for, but are completely unqualified to be working on this musical, did not deliver at all. And I shouldn't be surprised because they are just not qualified to work on something of this scale. Their only musical theater credit is the Bridgerton concept musical, which is not a real musical.
Wait.
They wrote the music.
Who did the bootleg Bridgerton for TikTok got a Disney contract?
Yeah. And for a TV show, that's fine, right?
Yeah, but then
for
they
the
spun it into a movie.
Oh my god.
That's the thing, is that we're gonna make fun of these these people and their songs. I almost don't blame them.
No, I don't blame them either because they were thrown desire. Like, that's something I want to stress, and I guess I haven't done a good job.
No.
Maybe I'll put this earlier in terms of our editing, but like, the girls that wrote the music were thrown under the bus. It's so unfair to them. Like, Julia Michaels doing Wish is one thing, because in interviews you hear about like her selfish desires to have a song that like Disney adults could play at their wedding, and she said a bunch of other dumb shit, right? And like, her songs are so bad that it's like, it's not even about crunch. It's just like, this is so bad because like, you're a bad songwriter. Do you know what I mean? Whereas with these two girls,
I think it's crunch.
I see like the potential, and I see crunch.
If
like, I see that
if
this
they
is
had
crunch.
more time to work on that jazzy villain number, it would have been rad.
And so
if they had
that's
more
what's
time to
crazy,
work
right?
on Moana's I Want song would be better.
Like,
if you had more like time to work on like the like pep yourself up song, like but like realistically they probably had to crank out a bunch of songs and a bunch of songs that we won't see because they were for episodes of the Moana show that got cut.
Probably,
and then they had to like they just must have worked on such a nightmarishly truncated timeline.
Yeah, because so I have heard this from Glenn Slater interviews, but like, already for TV shows, they don't get a lot of time.
Like 2 weeks
they
a
get
song
the
or
script,
something.
And then
Insane,
it's like,
right?
well, yeah, like, it's really insane. Sometimes a month, more like 4 weeks, sometimes. It kind of depends. But like, so Glenn Slater has talked about this before, that for the Tangled show, I think he mentions outright that it was kind of stressful because the turnaround time on the material is so quick, obviously. And they really got to get their shit together. But when you have the difference between Glenn Slater and Alan Menken is that they know these characters, they know how they speak, they're already familiar with them, right? Even like, you know,
they probably going into it had a bunch of ideas for songs that they cut from the movie that they could maybe expand on later.
So they were well equipped to deal with the characters in the world that they had already written music for. Whereas these girls, unfortunately, had the hardship of needing to get into the heads of all of these different characters who all have a different way of speaking and do it on a very like short, crunchy type of schedule. And so as a result, everything just sounds like kind of a mediocre pop song in the same way that Wish did. But what's frustrating is that in Wish, none of the songs have any musical theater potential, whereas in this one, I do see the musical theater potential if they had given it proper instrumentation and if the lyrics had some time to cook. Now, I read somewhere that they had like books from Lin-Manuel Miranda. I guess he tried to help them. But, you know, because I may put this at the beginning now, as we go through the video and make fun of the songs, please understand that we are not making fun of the two female songwriters that wrote the songs as much as we are saying, wow, that was ass, but it's not really their fault. At the end of the day, someone approved that creative direction. Like, somebody approved these things and commissioned these things, and they didn't give any mentorship to these girls and threw them right under the bus. Because imagine how crazy it must be to be like the first fully female like composition team, right? For I think for any Disney movie, but I don't know, like
quite
maybe
possibly,
recent time, I don't know, but like it was something like that, right? Like so you have that, right? And now they're getting thrown into the shit, right? Because they just didn't have the time or the resources.
For like someone just starting off their
were
career.
Really butchered, right? Like, you know, I see the potential in a lot of those like melody lines and a lot of those things were really interesting, but it's totally stripped of like interesting instrumentation where it's like there's like one instrument going on per track. Does that make sense? Like, oh yeah, here's the brass and then it's gone. Like,
not
the instruments aren't layered over each other at all. So I wonder if that has something to do with the arrangers. Before we get into our actual review, I just want to mention something that Shea Frelish Productions mentioned in his review. Like, if this makes money, if this is successful, Disney is never going to learn their lesson. So I'm telling you right now, do not go see this movie. Obviously, I paid for it because this is my job, but I want the best for you guys. Please go see Wicked. Even go see Gladiator, even though that's apparently fucking bad too. Just anything else. Please, for the love of God.
When Wicked ended, we saw Wicked together last week. When Wicked ended, people clapped.
Yeah.
We left the theater like, wow, that was really good. I was whistling Popular on the way home.
Oh my God.
When we left this movie, the old lady sat next to me said, I mean, I guess it was fine. Which,
right. People were getting
silence.
up during Maui's song, which was near the end of the movie.
Like,
but
you talk about being sorry for Lin-Manuel Miranda. This movie has made me, like, appreciate Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I know.
I want to write a formal apology to whenever I've made fun of him. Whenever I've called him a theater kid, whenever I've made fun of him for that one photo of him biting his lip.
Or like the Scuttlebutt song, like Scuttlebutt was not representative of Lin-Manuel Miranda's writing ability. That was totally wanting to give Aquafina a little rap number. But so
Scuttlebutt was like, Scuttlebutt sounded like opera compared to...
compared to the rap section. We'll talk about it, okay? But like, here's what I'm gonna say, right? Again, I think I lost my train of thought. So Shea Frelish Productions mentioned this in his review. Like, Disney will not learn their lesson if this makes money. Please don't go see it. Like, they will literally cheap out on every department. He thinks that they're gonna gut Disney animation, which I completely kind of wouldn't be surprised after Frozen
they've
is
already
done,
gutted,
honestly.
Disney television animation.
Yeah, and so it's not good. And like, this was just such a nothing, middle of the road, nothing movie. Like, I need Hunter here because I'm starting to forget what happened. At least Wish was so bad that it made me feel like a compulsion to do rewrites. Whereas like, this just feels like more of a product than art, whereas older Disney movies, especially in the Renaissance, feel more like pieces of art that happen to sell product. Obviously, it's all in the pursuit of making money, but these are movies that in of themselves, even if you don't buy the Little Mermaid merch or whatever, still feel like pieces of art, whereas this was like totally just to sell plushies. Like, it was soulless and kind of horrendous. So
yeah, because with the first Moana, I think personally, and you know, I think it's a toss-up between personally Tangled and the first Frozen and the original Moana, but I think the first Moana might be the best sort of 3D animated Disney princess movie.
Because Tangled was kind of a prototype in a sense,
and it was a lot more sillier, but I think that like Moana cut right down the middle of feeling very classic and very timeless and very gorgeous and beautiful. I remember the first time I saw it thinking the animation was the greatest I'd ever seen, which made this movie so shocking.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that later. But yeah, like, and it's been, like, that movie came out 2016, 2017.
Yeah, it's almost been 10 years.
I probably haven't seen it since 2018, and I can remember the songs in it. I remember, like, Where You Are, and the I Want song, and Maui song, and Tamatoa song. I just watched Moana 2.
It's already leaving, guys!
I remember, like, the songs happening. I could not sing a line of any of them. What's that? You know how in the Disney parks, they have a special color paint that they paint like the ugly.
The backgrounds disappear, like the skyline.
Yeah, the sky, like the Disney invisible color. Yeah, imagine if a movie was painted with that color.
Yeah, we're literally starting to forget, you guys. And I guess just in comparison,
if I went back home and somebody died and the police were like, "Where were you the night of da-da-da-da-da?" and I was like, I went to see Moana 2, and they were like, "What happened in Moana 2?" I'd be like, there's water. I would be in prison.
Oh my God. So with that said, okay. I only watched Moana this year. And so I feel like as opposed to Hunter, I'm in a better position because I have no childhood nostalgia for it. It is all just raw, like post-musical theater school cow brain, right? You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, but I like Beauty and the Beast Enchanted Christmas and I've watched it since I was 5. Like, no, this was with my mature adult brain and I thought it was like fantastic. I loved Moana as a character. I thought the lore was interesting. The setting was gorgeous. The story was heartfelt and the animation was amazing, obviously, but there is one thing that I did not like about the original Moana, and it's very important for what I thought I wasn't gonna like about this movie, and that was Maui. Now, I am going to make a whole video that Hunter read the script for about, like, Disney's leading man problem, which is Naveen, Kristoff, Maui, and Kristoff again. Kind of suck. Yeah, Kristoff, because he's in both of them, right? So that they all kind of suck, right? And so most of the time, they are so incompetent that they can just be, like, shuffled away from the plot in order to let the leading lady be heroic. And I know that we want the girls to be heroic. The problem is that I don't think it's very heroic for Anna to be dating an incompetent man. That's just not my dream. That's not my wish fulfillment. I don't want to go on adventures, you know, with I don't want to go on adventures with a man that gets lost in the woods and disappears for half of the movie, right? And then you have the other side of the coin, right, where the character is like selfish and toxic, and the leading, oh my God, and the leading lady must wrangle them again to make her feel heroic or morally superior, right? Like Tiana and Naveen, right? Tiana makes nothing in that movie happen. Naveen is the one who makes everything happen because he's so flawed. But in comparison, Tiana is like I don't know, like a Mary Sue type character that has no flaws, right? And she spends the whole movie being like superior over Naveen in terms of like, yeah, you shouldn't have fucked with the Shadow Man. And I talked about this in my songless Disney character exploration deep dive video, which was a video where I was like, okay, this character doesn't have a song. Where would I give them a song, and did they need a song, right? And so I talked about the Princess and the Frog stuff in there a little bit more. But you can really tell how they were too afraid to make Tiana flawed, because the logical conclusion is that they both go to the Shadow Man and they both get turned into frogs. Instead, Naveen has to wrangle her into the plot because they didn't want to make Tiana have flaws. So that's like a whole thing. And then you have Kristoff. But with Maui, it's that we are going back to this old trope of like the Peter Pan type character who is like an immature, emotionally stunted child, okay? And like, this is only in the
God-man-child.
God-man-child. And this is only in like the post-Renaissance movies, really, unless you go all the way back to things like Peter Pan, where this trope sort of originated, right? Like, not Peter Pan the movie, but Peter Pan the novel is like the poster child for this sort of like, the female character must mother the man and like solve like his problems and stuff. And so we're just reinventing what was a sexist trope in a new way. And the only reason why characters like Flynn got away with that is because they are vulnerable and empathetic multiple times in the movie. With Maui, the problem is that his sad backstory is so forced, so Moana can be like, oh, you're just like me for real. And then 5 minutes later, he's back to saying that she's like useless and won't amount to anything, so they can have like a third act breakup, right? And so I am annoyed. I was already annoyed seeing Maui, because I think it would have been better if they made Maui younger, like around Moana's age, because that would explain the Peter Pan-ism, like he's a 2,000-year-old god that has been a child, right? And that would make sense to me. Or just make it about her father, and that they're both traveling the sea together, because her father has all this trauma around his brother, I think, drowning, because they tried to leave the island. And so like, have a story where it's Moana and her father like learning to overcome this trauma and grief. Don't bring in this like other kind of useless man, right? So I say all of that because I think that that would have been a more unique movie, but also just because this time, instead of one annoying man, we got 3, except one of them is a woman, apparently.
Sometimes
which I
women
found
are
out
men
later.
as well.
Well, I thought it was just like a twink, but it turned out to be a girl. So I
Science
guess they
lady.
get points for that.
And she was honestly one of the less cumbersome characters.
But I was like, oh, great. So instead of one incompetent person for Moana to have to wrangle as part of her heroism, she now has to wrangle Maui and then 3 other incompetent people. Fucking
Plus
fantastic.
a chicken and
right?
a cow.
Yeah, and so
Pig.
all of that to say,
What's the
right?
difference?
I don't know why they didn't just make Moana's sister older, so like it could, you know, be that they're working together or whatever. Like, I guess maybe that would be too close to Frozen, but fine. That was my problem with the original Moana, and that brings us to this movie, okay? So now we're actually gonna talk about the movie. As soon as the movie opened, I noticed that the characters do not fit in with the foliage or like the background.
Yeah, so
they are like popped. Have you ever seen those like AMV videos where people ship like Rapunzel and Jack Frost together and whatever? It looked like that, where the characters were not in the background.
It was the digital composition. So in like in digital animation, you create the animations for the characters, for the character models, and then you have to composite them into the world, the 3D worlds around them. In bad composition, they don't blend in. It's kind of like there's a je ne sais quoi to it. It's kind of hard to like describe.
Yeah.
But because of the shading and the colors and their feet don't land exactly, it has this uncanny valley effect where you're like, that's not quite right. In the beginning of the, I guess what would have been the first episode of the show.
So that's how we're going to talk about
like,
it.
A lot of the times you can see cuts in movies like where they worked around something. You could see scissors. The movie held scissors the entire time. In the first half hour of the movie, which felt weirdly long. And
the pacing was horrendous. Like, it just took such a long time to get to where we were going because it's episode 1.
And the opening, like, you'd think that, like, second, like, you know, Moana 2, you're going to have this really dramatic reveal of Moana because we haven't seen her in a while, but she just kind of shows up immediately and there's no build-up. Like, it was a TV show. Like, they didn't really care. Like, it wasn't as big a deal.
Yeah, and, like, the jokes were very kid-oriented, most of them. Like, there was a lot of slime and a lot of sort of armpit fart jokes. Like, sort of like that, lots of stunts with the animals. And that's
That's more of an issue with
Fine
the
when you're
writing.
a TV show and your
Yeah.
second screen where you're in the kitchen doing dishes and your kids are playing and not really paying attention to it. It's not good when you're like trapped in the movie theater and you wish that you like had your phone or was like playing solitaire or
anything
something,
else.
right? Or like knitting. Anyway,
But
so
that budget, like, because
Yeah.
like the writing, it affects it there, and it affects it with the humor as well. But like with the actual quality of animation, when I saw scenes from the trailer of it, I remember thinking it does not look as good as the original Moana. Now, of course, the original Moana is a couple years old now, so maybe I just thought, oh, maybe it was like revolutionary for a time, but it being on the same level would look worse now. I've looked at like comparisons. It actually is worse.
Yeah.
It's the TV budget. They did not crank it up at all, which is why there's such weird compositing. Why, especially in the opening, like 20 minutes of the film, there's just like look at the crowd shots
Yeah.
in the beginning of the film.
It's a
look at
little
like the corners of the
suspicious.
screen. You will see people, and it's like in the crowds of old video games where they're like two-dimensional
Yeah, they're all
characters with like 3 frames of animation. Not that bad, but you can tell they try to cut away from it very quickly so you don't notice.
Yeah, so what I was going to say about that, though, was that this looks like Kingdom Hearts 3 cutscenes that, like, almost trick people into thinking it's the movie, but if you look closer, it's actually not. Like, if you compare
Yeah.
Frozen, the Kingdom Hearts cutscenes, to Frozen the movie, upon first glance, it's okay. But then you
Yeah.
notice that you don't see anyone's pores,
Yeah.
right? And, like, that was really, I think, what was telling to me is that, especially Maui, so this is kind of a spoiler. I'm jumping ahead, but I think this is the only time we're going to mention it because we don't want to harp on it too much, right? So at some point, Maui loses his tattoos and you can see his bare body. Nary a hair on that man's skin.
His
not a
nipples
single hair on his chest. Not a single pore. His nipples
look
like
weird.
in Clip Studio Paint if you had drawn a rectangle and then just applied the multiply layer. Okay,
His nipple
like, it
looks
was
more
so
like a mole or like a beauty mark.
It was awful, and so like that is how the movie looks. It looks like
Which,
Kingdom Hearts
great.
does better than this. Worse than a Kingdom
Which
Hearts
like
3
really,
cutscene.
really good for a television animated show.
Yeah.
But like for a proper film,
Mm-hmm.
like it doesn't look as good as the movie it's the sequel to that's approaching 7-8 years old.
Yeah.
That shouldn't happen.
So let's talk about episode 1 as much as we can remember. So my other complaint with episode 1 is that they really should have started with the song to introduce Moana instead of just having this weird scene where she's climbing the mountain and then she finds a pot. So I guess what Moana is doing is she's trying to look for evidence of like human life and she's doing archaeology. And so she eventually finds it because like the chicken runs into it because Moana has no agency and can't do anything herself. And so she doesn't find it, the chicken does. But anyway, she goes back home with that, and that's where We're Back comes in. Now, here's the thing, right? All of the songs are bad, but I think that if it could have maybe been saved if they had started the movie with that strong opening instead of having this weird opening that fell flat. And there are criticisms about the music later with specific songs, but just in general, the lyrics were just as bad as whatever you're thinking they were bad, but the instrumentation was so hollow, which is strange because what I don't understand is like, okay, so for Bartlow and Bear, the lyricist, now I can't remember which one's which because I'm so heated all of a sudden, the lyricist is self-taught, and the composer is a prodigy who's been playing the piano at a very high level since she was 5. So you have this imbalance already, but like what's shocking to me at least, because I thought it was gonna be, oh, the composition is good, but the lyrics are ass. The composition felt super hollow, and I wonder if she as the composer got to do the arrangement or not, or if it was the music producers. I know for the end credit song, they got the guy back from Wish to do it, which is insane. After you fucked that up so much, why would they get Benjamin Rice to come back and do the music productions?
I
don't know if he did all of
nobody-
the songs. I don't even know if a producer in this context would arrange them. But the instrumentation was so pop music-esque and so hollow. It was genuinely awful. The only good song happened at the end of the movie, and it was a callback to the song that was in the first movie with Lin-Manuel Miranda's orchestration. And so the orchestration was literally so bad. But yeah, We're Back. I can't remember a single line other than We're Back to who we meant
These
to be.
like I hope no one ever feels imposter syndrome ever again.
No, because
Hey, do you want to make a musical? Fucking make it. Cause like
it can't get any worse than this guy's episode.
Even if it's slightly better than painfully mediocre, you would have done better than Moana too.
Well, you know why? It's because this is not a musical.
Yeah.
It's a TV show that has 2 songs per episode.
Yeah.
And so I immediately knew it wasn't going to be a musical because they didn't start with the opening number. It was just shoehorned. Every episode has 2 songs that they're shoehorned in, like Has-Been Hotel, but even worse, it's crazy. It's not.
You need to apologize to Has-Been Hotel.
I know, kind of. I mean, no, let's not go that far. But I'm just saying, like, it was nuts how transparent it was that this song had a that these episodes had a 2-song per episode mandate because they just came out of nowhere.
You could immediately tell, like, oh, it's been 2 it's been 2
15
songs,
minutes right
like,
down the middle.
Yeah, that's the end of episode.
And that's not how a musical works. Sometimes there are long chunks.
That's the end of
without
episode
any
2.
song. You know what I mean? And so, oh my god. So,
Mamma
Moana
mia.
is going back to the village, and during we're back, we are introduced to the side characters, which is the old farmer man who does make some funny old person jokes. The Maui fanboy who says that he's making fanfic, not even fan fiction. So that's the other thing. With this song, there were so many modern anachronisms, and I know that with Frozen, Anna says totally strange, but it's not over the top, whereas this one was using, like, modern words that only we had. Like fanfic, and it was genuinely
says, like,
awful.
Maui mentions a butt dial and says, you won't know what that is for 2,000 years.
Because that's like Genie, Robin Williams,
but also, like,
why is the fanfic man talking about fanfic? That's weird. And there were some terrible rhymes. I can't remember what they were, but it was like family, expanding, like it was that sort of thing. And I was like, oh god, this is awful.
And also they kept introducing these characters in the opening song, which was just like gun to my head, I could not tell you what that's like. I don't
know what their names are. Old man, fanfic man, and then the girl. That's
and Quirky Science Girl. Yeah. I could not for the life of you tell you their names. I can't tell you any of the lyrics from the song. I just remember there were points where, like, they introduced Grumpy Man, and Grumpy's like, I hate singing. And then they introduce Science Girl, and Science Girl's like, woo, I'm quirky. Let me, like, do crazy shit to your boat. And then there's Fanfic Boy, and I'm like, wow, these characters are kind of like one-off and tedious little side jokes. I mean, they work fine as, like, slightly annoying side jokes. I really hope they don't become like characters that you see through the rest of the movie, and then they become characters that you see for the rest of the movie.
Oh my god. And what's crazy is that the boat girl is actually interesting because she has a purpose, like she's an engineer.
She has, yeah.
But, okay, so I know why the farmer had to go on because they had to make food. Fine, okay? But fanfic guy was the lore person, and like Moana could have figured out. So in episode 2, which we're jumping ahead a little, there's a scene with the Kakamori. Yeah, the
coconut murderers.
The coconut murderers, and like it's like, oh, they want you to translate, and the fanfic guy does it, and I'm like, Moana could have figured this out. It's Pictionary. Like it's literally just pictures. It's not, you know what I mean? It's literally just what do you call it? Like a puppet show, like a shadow puppet show. Anyone can understand that. Out. Yeah. So okay. So back to episode 1. Song was actually ass, and that's when I knew that we weren't gonna have a fun time. So Moana gets like,
which is around when I think the next song is when you looked over to me and was like, "Want to come over later?
Yeah.
I'm gonna need like a hatchet man."
The relationship with Moana's sister, I feel like, was genuinely heartfelt. Unfortunately, she's only there for like 5 minutes in the opening, so screw that, I guess. Right? I think that that's the point where if people got emotional, I guess that's what it would be. I didn't feel emotional at all, which is another reason why with however I clickbaited this title, I'm saying that it's kind of better than Wish, because at least with Wish, when the grandfather is saying, why would you want me to know like what my wish was when I can't have it? Like his voice acting was genuinely heartbreaking. That did, even if the rest of the movie was ass, at least the scenes with Moana and her grandfather tugged at my heartstrings. Absolutely nothing. Like people in the theater laughed occasionally. I was not laughing the entire time.
There was like one or two jokes, like Maui has a joke about kidney stones.
Yeah, like the old guy's like, oh, you look like a kidney stone, and Maui's like, oh, you look like you know what that is.
There's one scene later on where like there's like 3 poisoned spears, and Moana drops one
in the ocean,
and they need these poisoned spears that they get from the evil coconuts, and then she drops another one, and the science lady's like, that's why you always keep a second. She drops that one. She's like, oh, good thing we had a third. Drop that one, and then she says, oh, a fourth would be lunacy.
And like, it was silly, but it wasn't silly in an endearing way. It just annoyed me. But let's get through episode 1 first.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Moana,
the movie's so unmemorable that I'm remembering bullshit moments of it later.
Yeah, I know. So Moana gets like ordained into being a wayfinder. That's all good. And then during her ceremony, a lightning bolt hits her, and this old wayfinder man tells her like gift of prophecy, you have to go do things, okay? And so she almost gets hit by lightning, and she has this vision of like this man in the past and all of this stuff that was
like
going
his
on.
ancestor who was also
And
a
like the fucked up thing that happened, which was the ocean god, who I'm gonna just call Poseidon or Ocean Man for the rest of the movie because we didn't catch his name at all. Nobody mentioned anyone by name, I swear.
No,
Okay.
his name got mentioned a bunch. For the life of me, I can't remember it. In the drawings, he looks like Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh, which is a reference that this audience is probably not going to get.
Poseidon put the island that's supposed to connect everyone underground. Moana has to go find it. That's fine. So that's how we get into the Moana I Want song, and her sister being like, oh my god, you're going to be gone forever, because her parents stupidly kind of in front of her is like, oh, but that could take years to do. You may never come back. It could take a lifetime. And like they say that in front of the little girl. So this could have been a very heartfelt I Want song. The problem is, and you guys were like, oh, Cal, it's just the end credits song. It'll be better. It was not better. The instrumentation was just as ass as it was in the credits. And you guys gaslit me because some of you said, oh, but it's going to be a duet with the grandma, and they're hiding that. No, the grandma does show up in the most weird cutting possible.
Yeah.
At first she's the fish, and then they cut, and then she's human grandma.
In the first movie,
the
first movie, her showing up as like her spirit self was like this very emotional moment. She appears once in the beginning and once at Moana's lowest points. In this movie, she kind of just shows up.
Yeah,
like,
she
hey,
literally appears like an organization member out of one of those portals in Kingdom. Like, she just literally pops up.
She pops in, says nothing like interesting or profound,
she's just
and
like,
then
oh,
screws
Moana,
off.
you did it before. Go do it again, right? So the problem with this
The
song,
Disney
though,
shareholders, they need more money.
is that the problem with this song, though, is that it is fine to have a reluctant hero. The thing is that with an I Want song, you need to want something. And this song is about Moana being forced to go on an adventure. You can reframe being forced in terms of what kind of person will you be after. So, for example, in Beauty and the Beast, the musical, Belle has a song called Home, right? Where she's like, the beast has trapped me here, but, like, I'm going to make the best out of my bad situation. Like, where will I be? And she also has a line like, but I know that I can't solve my problems going back. And so the whole idea with that song is that Belle is trapped. She is forced to be here, but it's about deciding what kind of person she is going to be. The problem with this I Want song is it's Moana being like, they're calling me. I must reply. I guess I need to leave and say goodbye. And like, also I talked about the lyrics in my short that went viral on TikTok for some reason. And so you guys may already know my beef with that. It did not get better. The orchestration is so hollow, so pop music adjacent. It's just so bad. So that did not help. And what also doesn't help is just that Moana doesn't have agency, because it's fine to have that call to adventure, but a little part of you still needs to want it. Like Elsa does in Frozen 2, right? Elsa, like, I can hear you, but I don't want to, because I know in my heart I want an adventure, and I don't want you to ruin my life that I have here. Whereas Moana is just like, I'm forced to go because we're all gonna die, I guess. And like the sister makes a joke like, why don't you go force Maui to do it? And I'm like, yeah, bitch, why don't you go force Maui to do it? I mean, she needed the humans for the prophecy or whatever, but I'm like, no, that is a good point. The fact that like you've already sacrificed so much, at least I could see a little bit of anger in that song if they had really gone for it, and have Moana be like, no, I have sacrificed too much, go find someone else. But they're too afraid to make their main female characters flawed or make them angry or anything. Even though if you were on a call to adventure after you already saved the world once, wouldn't you be a little pissed that apparently there's no one else around to do it and they're just uprooting your life? So that's basically how episode 1 ends, is that Moana sings her little song and she's like, okay, I guess I'll go when I need a crew.
Yeah, Moana really is a static character in this movie. She's about as confident in herself in the beginning of it as she is in the end, more or less. I mean, she has a little bit of doubt, but that's what the first movie was about, which was when I realized I wasn't going to have a good time with this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really like the first song. The second, like, Moana's I Want song, that
it was pretty, but it was
like, it was one of the, it's like, I remember, like, as I was listening to it, I'm like, well, this is nice, but it's going to exit my head almost immediately. It doesn't, like, land in any, meaningful capacity. But also, the plot of this film is Moana 1.
And Frozen 2. in some weird
Yeah, like,
amalgamation.
'cause, like, and-
oh, our ancestor, right? It's like Elsa finding all the memories of the Thaldrin and all that stuff, right?
That's what Moana 1 was, realizing, that our ancestors were great voyagers, and we can go out and you can, like, restore the heart of Tafiti, which I can't remember what this guy's name is.
No. Oh,
And she goes and she does it, and then she teaches like yes, we can be voyagers again, which is really interesting because that's a historical fact. Like, Polynesian tribes did spread for thousands of years, and then there was a 1,000-year period where they just didn't, and no one knows why.
Yeah.
This is like a Disney fictionalized version of that. That was really cool. This is just the same plot again, because it's like, no, we're not voyaging. We can't find anybody, but they're probably out there. And who's stopping us? A god is stopping us. That was just you have to go.
We never see him, by the way.
You have to go and save the
end
god.
credit scene. But
you have to go into this island and you have to save him. And I'm like, this is she gets sidetracked by like a bit villain that shows up and then immediately leaves. Except this time she's not really even much of a villain.
God,
she doesn't
so true.
stop her. Like, it's literally the first movie over again,
but
beat
with
for
more
beat,
annoying people.
but with worse music and like just more bloat, because you're like, I've been here, I've done that, this isn't interesting. There's more characters now, I guess, but I don't really like them. The most interesting out of them was to murder like Coconut Man, and he doesn't really do anything.
He doesn't
even talk.
Oh my god. So that was episode 1. It was a slog. It was like maybe generously 25 minutes long, but like it was literally a slog to get through. Now, episode 2 starts, and the crew is having trouble working together, okay? Because of course they're all incompetent. And Maui also says, we need to talk about your recruiting process. So I'm like, okay, so the writers are aware that these characters suck and shouldn't be here, right? Because they're all incompetent. So you have fanfic guy, engineer guy, and then the farmer in the
chicken and pig. That makes sense for a TV show when you have a lot of like airtime.
Yeah.
And you can like grow these characters and you can have them have an arc. They don't have to be like static little weirdos.
Right.
Because like if it was a whole like series of just Moana and a chicken and a pig, that would be difficult.
Right.
But in a movie, completely unnecessary.
Yeah, and what was crazy is that first of all, they were all worse than Maui in their own ways. But I think that what was even more nuts is that they go from incompetent in episode 2 to suddenly competent and like a trained crew in episode 3. Despite Moana not having like a be a man sort of training sequence or anything, they're just all sort of stupid. I think the engineer girl was like the best one. However, I also want to point out that in her design, she has a bleached strip of hair. I'm not saying that bleach didn't exist during this time period because I don't know, but it probably didn't.
I'm almost certain
And so,
Clorox bleach
that was
did not.
weird. In combination with all the other modern references, it was like,
Was she supposed to be older? But she didn't look older.
No. I think she was like kind of just in her 20s.
I think they were supposed to make like, here's the kind of fruity character with the shorter hair and like the colored
the entrapped.
streak. The entrapped.
It's also
and she's
that,
quirky and she likes machines. She's a little coded.
It's also like that trope
Take
that
from that
like
what you will.
the Asian girls always have one streak in their hair. You have Gwen from 16, and then you have oh my god,
Nikki
Total
from
Drama Island, and then Nikki from 16 is what I meant to say.
Gwen is supposed to be white. Nikki is like dyed hair. Knives Chow from.
Is Nikki supposed to be? Or sorry, is Gwen supposed to be white?
I believe
I thought
Gwen's
she was just kind of pale. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But you guys understand that trope. So that was kind of like, I don't know, just give her
There's
a lighter
a lot of
hair color
examples
to
of,
like set
Asian
her apart
with.
from like Moana. Why did you anyway? So like, but she had curly hair, so that was nice, like a win for us, obviously.
I mean, all the characters had curly hair.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, a win for me personally.
For Polynesian, it'd be weird if there was a character who was like, and I have discovered the straightening iron.
Oh my god. So, okay, they all need to work together. They have the most annoying song in existence. I can't even remember how it goes, but like Moana is like, when we work together, yay. I literally can't remember a single line. And what was really bad, so it's kind of very tropey, like, the fanfic guy gets on board first, and then the engineer girl does, and then eventually the farmer does, whatever. But the problem is that this scene is not a training montage, because in the next scene they're stupid. So instead it's just like, let's sing a little song while we're going on an adventure, and like, so it doesn't contribute song. Like, I'll be a man. So the worst offender in terms of of lyrics and rhythm and
It's
composition
that song,
was
man.
that the girl has a rap section and she cannot rap.
And she
oh
busts
my God.
a rhyme about the scientific method, which was bad. But not nearly like it. Oh God! Like it. I looked at that and I'm like, Lin-Manuel Miranda. I'm never gonna make fun of you.
I know.
I will never make a joke about Hamilton and slave masters busting a rhyme ever again.
Oh my God.
Because this is like truly awful.
So it would be one thing, right, if they had their own style and it was just radically different from the movie, right? I really think that they should have gone with their own style over trying to emulate Lin-Manuel Miranda because it's just like actually bad. Like it's actually
You're
so
set there,
bad.
madame?
Thank you. It's so bad. It's awful. And I can't believe I'm saying this. It was worse to sit through than Wish. These songs, some of them at least. Like obviously
That
in Wish
one-
you have the talking animal one, which is also bad. But like this was like this was Scuttlebutt. This was worse than Scuttlebutt. I can't stress that enough. So that was how episode 1 started with a work together song that is so unmemorable. I can't remember the hook.
I remember
and a bad rap section.
It felt like the cleanup song from kindergarten. Like,
Oh my
clean
God,
up,
yeah,
clean
basically.
up, everybody,
Everybody,
share.
Oh my
And
God.
at that point, I realized, like Disney films are for children.
Yeah.
Like, they can be enjoyed by their family pictures. They can be
Sure.
enjoyed by everybody, and they have real art in there.
Mhm.
But like a Disney princess show.
Yeah.
And you've watched more of them. You say that they're pretty good.
Yeah, the Tangled songs are good because they got Alan Menken and Glenn Slater back, who did
Yeah.
the original music,
Yeah.
right? Not all the songs in Tangled are revolutionary, but like there are some
Solid.
like certified bangers, right? But like this is like less writing quality than Sophia the First.
And you-
Sophia the First is a preschooler show.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that
Oh
you
my
hit on that it's just like, like a Disney movie has to be a family movie. Everyone has to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, because parents are taking their kids to see it.
Yeah.
A DreamWorks picture, it has to be good for the whole family. Like, parents are seeing it. A children's TV show, especially like a Disney one for like a very young
Disney
kids
Plus, like
that
yeah.
are like obsessed with Moana and will watch anything princess. Not to say that kids don't have taste, but like you don't have to make it that good because
Yeah.
parents aren't forced to watch
And
it.
you're
'cause
not held
parents
hostage
have
there
to-
even as a
Yeah,
child. You can play
parents-
with your toys and just
Yeah,
listen to it, right?
parents like have to chauffeur their children to a movie. They have to watch a movie. They can just put this on for their kids, or their kids can put it on for themselves. It doesn't have to be good for them
Mhm.
because this song legitimately felt like a song for kindergartners.
Yeah, it was
Like-
worse. Like I actually
The
think that
songs
some
in-
of the songs
yeah.
in Sophia the First are like kind of like bangers, but like they're bangers in a children's education context, right? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? This wasn't even like
This
a
was like-
banger for children.
This was
was
like
just bad.
this was like Coco Melon.
Oh
this
my
was
God.
like
Ew.
this was I don't know what's like the best because I want to say like My Little Pony, but no, the My Little Pony songs
has
were pretty
songs.
good.
Open Up Your Eyes is a better villain
Yeah.
song than the one this villain has.
Winter Wrap Up is a banger and not near like this song wishes it was Winter Wrap
So
Up.
I guess we should transition into the
Oh,
villain now.
man.
So what happens is
Backyardigans?
that
No, the Backyardigans. I would never slander the Backyardigans like this.
so they come across the Kakamori.
Bad song. Worst
then
song in the movie, I think.
They find out that the Kakamori are actually also wayfinders and they've lost their home. So we already get like a villain from the first movie has gotten like a redemption arc where they were just evil, coconut, mindless, Borg-like creatures, right? In the first movie. Now they get like a little redemption, which is fine. But like, okay, so they have this giant weird frog that exudes poison and it's just the most kid show SpongeBob looking frog with a giant Squidward nose where the poison comes out and then this huge fat body. So again, just a lot of kids stuff. They all get covered in slime, which is weird,
and
right?
and the slime is purple and it's paralyzes them. And I will say that the slapstick, I enjoyed the slapstick.
I
with
did
the
not.
evil
I was
coconut,
sitting there and I
because
was
whenever
like,
they
oh.
get coconut, they dropped immediately and they got a giggle out of me. You know,
I had no giggles. I didn't laugh this entire movie. I was so mad.
I got some giggles. I'm a
yeah.
simple creature.
I guess like, it depends on who you are. I thought kind of the joke about the spears was a little funny, like in a meta sense.
That was so like but
that was kind of like a layered joke on top of
funny,
each other.
but it was like
incompetent, and so that's why I was annoyed with it, because I'm like, oh, you're just incompetent again.
No, it was funny. It was funny, but it was like almost out of place for this movie.
Right.
Because like this movie did not have absurdist humor like that.
Yeah.
So part of me feels like that was also a thing that was cut from like the TV show part of it.
Well, I mean, all of this is just the TV show, right?
Well,
like,
yeah, I know, but like with this, it's like, oh, if that character had more scenes and more times to do jokes, she probably would be like the person with the absurdist joke.
Yeah.
But because all
the
of those
jokes,
yeah, like the weird, like she would be like the really weird one who would make the joke about like, come on, 4's ridiculous. 4 spears, come on.
Yeah.
So like, oh yeah, like that character makes more sense as kind of like a quirky, out of pocket, like not in line with the rest of the show character if we saw more of her and she had more of those jokes. But presumably those jokes were like cut for time.
Or they just would have happened later, right, in the series, right?
So instead it's just this really weird absurdist joke about this woman having 3 spears and how a 4th one would be ridiculous. Like, who keeps 4 spears?
So, but the reason why that bothers me is because, like, Moana has to take all of them and put them in, like, the cargo hold of the ship, reinforcing how stupid and incompetent they are, and then they fuck up Moana's plan. So I'm like, why are all of you guys here? And the spear thing is just further evidence of that, because they literally drop all of them, couldn't tie a rope around it.
And the reason why they need the spears is because both the coconut people and Moana are looking for the island.
Yeah, and there's a giant monster in their way.
And which is weird, because, like, presumably it's the ocean, right? You could just go around the giant monster. They never really explained
and
that.
And the monster doesn't move, so...
It's a giant...
Like, it's just there.
It's a giant clam?
It reminds me of, you know how it's like, oh, you're in between Scylla or, like, Cerberus? Like this...
Cerberus?
Yeah, no, not Cerberus. It's like Scylla, and then there's the other one. And it's supposed to be, oh, you're in between a rock and a hard place. But it's that old, like, Greek joke, right? And so, like... Chernobis? I don't know, whatever. Not Chernobog. There's 2. Scylla is like a sea monster.
Okay.
And then the other one is like this giant, like, whirlpool monster type situation. And that's what this felt like, even though we're not supposed to be in Greek mythology land. But anyway, oh, we forgot to talk about, so Maui is kidnapped in the first episode.
Yes,
and he's really concerned about the ocean man trying to kill Moana.
Because he's trying to go and, like, save the day and beat the ocean man.
Yeah, without Moana.
And he's being held captive by this Batwoman.
Yeah.
And they, like, build up this Batwoman to be I thought,
she's
like,
not the main villain.
I thought, like, oh, she's the main villain. Like, it's going to be kind of like the heart of Waititi?
Yeah, Tafiti.
Yeah, Tafiti, sorry. About how, like, oh, actually, there was, like, it was actually Maui who did the bad thing.
Also, this is just Maui's fault again. Like, talk about how Maui, like, the bad lady has
that, like,
Maui
this guy that was
Maui's
actually
fault.
doing thing wasn't that bad. It was this girl who was going to be, like, in the way. And just before we get to her, point out, they build her up as a villain.
Yeah,
you
from
don't
the
ever
first
see
episode.
her face. She had, like, I thought she was really cool.
She was actually serving. Like, she
was great.
You know,
she had this kind
see you
of
next Tuesday.
yeah.
Like, she served.
She had this, like, vampire vibe. She didn't, like, suck anybody's blood or anything, but, like, there was bats everywhere. She, like, hung upside down. She floated around.
Yeah, she was very, again,
ethereal
Disney
and creepy.
villain, serving, theatrical, Ursula, like,
gay, really gay.
Really gay.
Where, like, I was so excited for her. I looked at her at the beginning of the movie because
she has a very pleasant voice,
it's
very, like,
sultry
sexy
and nice.
voice.
I really like Lady Demetresque.
Yeah.
I like sultry evil women.
I was hoping that she would have
I was like, oh, like, this movie might not be very good, but she's gonna be amazing. And they built her up as a character. We'll get to her, but, like...
Well, we're gonna get to her now, because we're done with the coconut. So, she is trapped here because of the ocean god.
Because they fail to stick a spear into the giant clam, so they get sucked into the belly of the beast, Noah style.
Yeah, basically. Pinocchio style, you could say. So... the bat lady is in the clam, which, okay, I still don't understand, but fine. So
she looks like she gets into clams often.
Oh, what? Okay. So she,
because she's gay-coded is the joke.
By say the ocean man, she is stuck there because this is her punishment or whatever. So she's not really a bad guy, so they undermine her villainy right away, and she actually has a song giving advice to Moana to like
Which
break
is,
out
like-
of the status quo
Which
and
was
like
kind
see
of
the difference.
jazzy.
Yeah, and I had such high hopes for it because it started as a jazzy villain number, but then the instrumentation, and maybe this will be something that's improved on the soundtrack, but I really don't think so. It was so pop music and so hollow that it started out jazzy, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna have brass, this is gonna have Ursula
Because
realness.
she has the
Not
husky
a single
voice.
brass
I
was
thought they were
there.
gonna like really lay in on it, and they just
It
don't.
was a slightly jazzy pop song.
At least here's the thing: the other songs, I can't even remember the vibe of half of them. I can at least remember that it was jazzy.
But I can't remember the hook.
And I
I
remember.
can't
I remember the visuals, liking the visual, because I liked how she moved around.
Yeah.
Because she's like, "Hey, Moana, you can get out of
She's
here.
doing
You
a
can
little
save
like,
the day."
you know, this sort of thing, right? Like
she
very
flickers
cool.
around. She looks so effortless when Moana's nervous as they're traversing the inside of this giant monster clam.
But like, she's not really a villain. She's just a hostage.
She does, yeah.
She's
So she
literally
like
a hostage, and she's also helpful.
she
It's not
kidnaps.
like, oh, Moana, do you want to be a little bad? Like, that's not what the song is about. It's just think outside of the box.
It's weird, like, because you think she's gonna be a villain, but she's really not. Yeah, she kidnaps Maui, but she doesn't stop Maui from leaving.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. She helps
It's kind
Moana.
of like she wanted to be free, which was the whole point, right?
But
so she
she can't
captured Maui
yeah.
from Moana, but then at the end of the movie, there's something that, like, I guess the idea is that she's just pretending to work for the Ocean Man and she has her own ideals, but like,
which would show
it
up
was
later in a
the TV
television
show,
series.
right? Because she says to Moana, "Oh, I captured Maui, so you guys could break the curse and then I could be free." What was really stupid though was this lady has a whole song about how she can't be free, and then Moana's like, "Are you coming?" And then Moana's like, "Oh wait, you can't come with us." Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, what do you mean? Were you not paying attention, right? And so she helps them and sends them on their way. That makes sense for her character of who this lady was.
But it's also
but
such
it's
a weird,
underdeveloped,
yeah.
right?
And she's like the coolest new character that they introduce.
Yeah.
I wish that her like design, maybe her design's based off of an actual sort of Polynesian
Yeah.
god. I kind of wish she looked a little more goth and a little more vampire-y. But like, I like her design. I love her voice actress, like the breathy kind of like, hello, like her kind of like her
This villain
charisma,
song-
uniqueness, nerve, and talent of it all.
Yeah, like
it worked
this was
really well.
worse than This Is the Thanks I Get, because at least I remember This Is the Thanks I Get. Do 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 do. Like, at least I can remember Magnifico's song. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. I can't remember
She was
anything.
such a cool character. She deserved a better song. I can remember the shiny crab from Moana
Yeah,
1 song.
I can do that all for you right now, right? And so
Like,
here's the
it's-
thing.
And like that character's fine because it's just this bit villain who's a brief like, you know, obstacle for
Yeah.
Moana. Moana beats him and then gets on her way.
But
like with this lady, she's just kind of there and helps her and leaves,
Mhm.
but she's like kind of villainous, but not really. So she's this really weird, superfluous character. I just like it's like I'm frustrated not that she's bad, but that she's such a wasted character.
Yeah, I agree. And
Like she should have been like the season 2 or like rest of the season villain for the Moana TV
she
show.
probably would have
She
been.
probably would have been, and now we're probably like unless that Moana 3, which Lord,
Please
don't see
don't
this
do
movie.
this. No,
it is.
we
it
can't
is.
let this happen.
Do not. If your children want to see Moana 2, you
Take
need to
them to
look.
Wicked, please.
You need to look them into their eyes and explain what disappointment is.
Yeah.
Cause it's just not like wait till it's on Disney Plus, pirate it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Sneak into the theater.
Yeah, buy your tickets for Wicked. Go
Yeah,
see
I don't-
Wicked and see this after.
Yeah, I just Wicked was it really makes me appreciate how good Wicked was.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like-
What I was gonna say is, sorry for talking over each other because we're both clearly heated and we haven't done this in a while. What I was gonna say was the difference between Tamatoa and this lady is that Tamatoa at least has, you try to be tough, but your armor's just not hard enough. Like, he has that sign, like, oh, like, did your granny tell you that that's what's important? No, what's important is your looks, right? Like, he has barbs towards
He's
Moana and Maui
memorable.
that help with their character
Yeah.
development, whereas this lady, again, I can't remember the hook of any song, and you guys have to understand that as a performer, I memorize things really quickly. Usually, I can hear a song once and sing it back to you, like, with, like, 80% accuracy. Not every note's gonna be correct, but by then I got it. So I'm so shocked. I'm actually shocked that I don't remember anything. So I guess we should move on to episode 3 now, right?
So they get out of there, then they go into the spirit plane, and then they go into like episode 3 where they're in the spooky dimension where there's an ocean that won't help Moana because it's being controlled by this god who's angry and whose
Also,
name I
the
can't
ocean
remember.
looked ass. Like, the ocean looked like Kingdom Hearts 2 cutscene kind of ass.
Yeah, there was a couple scenes where the water effects were like it looked really nice when it splashed across her, and then it receded in a very weird way.
Yeah, like it just looked like blue
I'm
video
worried-
game Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
I'm
like,
worried
it just
that
was
it's going to
weird.
be like anime releases where when they air an anime originally, like there's rough parts, and then for the Blu-ray re-release they like fix it. I'm worried they're gonna like fix this when it goes to Disney Plus, and a bunch of people are gonna look back at this and be like, it wasn't that bad.
No,
like,
it was
no,
bad.
There
Seeing
was
it,
like
again, no pores on anyone's skin, no hair, no nipple bumps or anything. Like, I'm not saying that we need hyper-realistic nipples in my Disney movie, but Maui's nipples were not acceptable.
I'm saying it. I'm saying I want to see.
It was weird. Okay, so Moana and them have to. Maui has to pull up the island, and then Moana has to step on it.
And then that
Suddenly,
solves the
everyone's competent all of a sudden, but kind of
Yeah.
not, because fanfic boy meeting Maui is like creeps Maui out and kind
yeah.
of insufferable, and he talks about his fan
Yeah.
fiction.
And
The
then
only
Maui
good line
has-
he had was
Wait,
like,
no,
"All
Maui
my
has-
life I've been telling stories, and now you've let me be in one." Only good line from fanfiction, man.
And Maui has his song.
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, no, we
Hold
jumped
on,
ahead a bit.
No, this happens first, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No, because, they end up shipwrecked on
Yeah.
the island. So, hold
Yes,
on. So,
okay.
Guy almost drowns, and then they all get, like, shipwrecked on this island where the
Okay.
original spirit man got shipwrecked in the first place, and then they use that to fix their
The
ship, but
original
we're not there
farrier
yet.
that appears as just like generic ancestor in the film.
Yeah.
In the first Moana.
No.
Isn't that the same guy?
No, well, in the
And, like,
first
in the-
episode.
No, in the first Moana film when they kind of in the
was it
flashbacks.
supposed to be that
Yeah, that was that guy, I think.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. So,
And like
Sorry.
in the scenes where like
they did not
Moana's
make that
grandma.
obvious at all. Oh my god. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. It was the first Wayfarer guy this whole time. So, anyway, so it was where their boat crashed.
And he died horribly.
And they all died horribly, which Maui has a couple jokes about, which I thought was actually kind of funny. But anyway, fanfic guy almost drowns. They make a bunch of jokes about how creepy he is towards Maui. He's a very, okay, this is not a bad thing, but he's a very effeminate character, and I kind of don't like that stereotype of, like, the gay-coded man is creepy. You know what I mean? Like, Maui calls him creepy.
Or just, you know what it is?
just sort
It's
of
that, like,
bad.
it's like the stalkerish hyper obsessed fan has, like, feminine qualities.
And that's weird.
I don't know how, you could probably break that down deeper, but, like, the notion that, like, being obsessed is like a frivolous
feminine
feminine trait.
Like, that
and
was
so when
just-
a man does it, it
just rubbed
appears
me
in
the
a
wrong way
feminine
because you got kind of a no homo sort of thing. Where
Yeah,
it's like,
I don't. it's not there.
If it was a girl, Maui would be like, yeah. Baby, right? Like, but because it's a guy, it's anyway, whatever. That was just a little weird.
I'm not that upset about it,
No,
but
it
like,
was just
it's
something
not.
that I noticed. Like, he
it's
would have gotten
there.
more character if it was a TV show, but like, his only personality trait was being fanfic
I'm
man,
less
and Maui was creeped out by
I'm
it.
less angry about it and more just I knocked over a stool under the desk. I'm less upset about that and more like, yeah, that is an interesting thing.
It's not
that
upsetting, it's just
we
weird.
view certain behaviors as feminine. We view the like obsessed fan of like, oh my god, like fanfic fanboy as kind of a feminine, so it does come off that way.
Yeah, and so
that
that
the fact that he's like a creepy fan, yeah.
It's just, it's not like, oh, it's problematic.
It's
but
not,
like, it's just
but, like,
weird.
it's
Like, it's just kind
interesting.
of weird.
Interesting to think about.
It's not the first movie that's ever done that trope, but like, it bothered me that they would even like, I don't know, right? And again, they reference fanfic. They call it fan fiction, which in ancient times it wasn't called fan fiction. It was
just
called mythology.
Yeah.
Because everyone had their own interpretation of these stories.
We didn't have the notion of like
capitalism and like one thing being canon and there was only one
copyright
version,
and these things don't exist unless we're talking about like the Bible and even then.
Right? And So,
Yeah,
okay,
people-
anyway, so he almost drowns, and
So-
then they get shipwrecked, and then Maui has a motivation song because Moana's like, I did this, I failed, kind of like the first movie, but, like, the difference is that, like, no, you didn't fail, bestie. You got the most 3 incompetent people on your island. You couldn't even bring your dad, who, yes, obviously has, like, water-based trauma, I guess, but, like, he at least sailed a little bit with his
I don't
brother.
remember that
Yeah, that was
detail.
a trauma thing. That's why he doesn't want to leave the island, because him and his brother tried, and then his brother drowned, and he had
Aw.
all this, like, trauma about it.
Poor baby.
But okay, so here's the other thing. Why didn't they bring anyone who could fight? They should have brought someone who was actually, like, combat capable on this
I mean,
mission.
one of the coconut guys enters their team.
Right, but I'm
he's
saying
kind of combat.
there's a logical inconsistency
But he doesn't really
that you
do
have
very
secured
much.
food, you secured an engineer, and you secured a fan
Knowledge.
fiction man to tell you lore, but you didn't secure. And Moana says, "Oh, you have brains and muscle. This guy has no muscle. He doesn't know how to fight." So, like, that's
Well, I mean, he's strong. He's
Right,
a strapping young
but
lad.
he has
but like,
no combat experience.
and so like the coconut character is seen with like a knife, and he's like combat capable.
I could have
and,
used like Cassandra from
he
Tangled,
picks
like
a
a
fight,
knight for Moana.
But
you
like
know what I mean?
when he joins the group, he kind of never really fights again, or when he does, he doesn't really do anything competent
No.
because the only person there that can fight the monsters is Maui.
So, like, I would have appreciated combat capable, stoic, like,
Coconut Man.
girl character. No, like Cassandra
Oh
from
yeah,
Tangled.
sure.
And, like, kind of over it, like that personality type. But anyway, and so
But then again,
Maui has.
do we need another annoying character on the?
Well, if they were all girls, I would be happy because 2 of them are. I'm not like, okay. The reason why I say that is because this could have been a very fun girl power, totally spies. It's a team of other young girls that Moana has banded together, except for the farmer, because I guess he needs the experience. But you could have just said that it was a gifted prodigy of the farm people. Like, you know what I mean? You know, there are ways
I
to
don't
explain that. If the engineer girl is a prodigy, just have them all
The
be,
reality
like,
of it
these
is that
gifted
like
people, right?
like young boys also watch these films, so they kind
Well,
of
you can
want
have
their
one.
boy.
You can have one boy. It's Maui. Maui's the boy. You got one boy, and that's all you get.
Well,
but it could have
speaking
been a
of
really
Maui-
nice, like, girl power thing. Maui has the most horrendous song, other
Dwayne
than
the Rock
section in the other
Johnson.
movie.
Dwayne the Rock
the other
Johnson
episode, I mean.
is not like a good movie star.
No, he's not.
I'm gonna say it.
Why do they keep casting
People
him in
like
stuff?
him a lot, and
And he
I
can't
don't
sing that
know
well.
why. Because he kind of plays the
Himself.
Rock in every movie.
Yeah, and it's
Like, there's
awful.
not a lot. Like, he plays the Rock, but slightly more serious, or the Rock,
Yeah.
but slightly more
I
goofy.
mean, my professors would tell you that like 99% of movie actors are like that they're just playing themselves, especially for TV. It's one
Like,
thing to
no,
like,
I
see,
disagree.
like,
There are actors who are like chameleons who do
oh
different
no,
characters.
but that's becoming a lost art, like character acting.
Oh, yeah.
Especially because a lot of actors don't start out in theater anymore.
With Dwayne The Rock Johnson, he has his own production company. He could make roles
Well,
for
he
himself
produced
that are
this
more
movie.
interesting.
He
Sounds
produced
about right.
the TV show. He was the executive
Ugh.
producer.
Oh, God.
Which is so
And
funny.
like, so like, yeah, he makes movies where he's just this generic self, and he's just like, he developed for himself this like vague, like lowest common denominator. No one really gets that upset with me vibe about himself
Yeah.
that makes him kind of boring. And that's okay if you just want him to show up in action movies. You know, apparently he's going to do an A24 feature that's directed by one of the Safdies, which is about a wrestler, which might be good. He might be good at that, so maybe he has chops. But in this movie, he's just kind of like himself, where
Yeah.
it's just like, oh yeah, The Rock, but charming.
And I also
and-
kind of regress on
and
his
his-
character sometimes.
Yeah,
like,
and yeah.
In other times, he's like, you believed in me, and so now I'm believing in you, which is fine. But other times, he's like, yeah, I don't need Moana to come rescue me, like, and all that stuff. And that, I get that that's part of Maui's character, that he's really, like, selfish, but it did feel like he just went back to his regular, like, a pre-Moana personality until this 3rd episode. And the problem is that the song is not heartfelt at all.
It's
I can't
He
remember
also,
the
like,
lines again.
He's because I remember in the first Moana
Yeah.
when because that was like the first Disney movie I remember Lin-Manuel Miranda after Hamilton being a part of.
Yeah.
I recall. And so it was like, oh, like he's probably gonna rap in it because, you know, you don't have to, not to say that there isn't definite talent with being a good rapper, there absolutely is, but it's like you don't have to hit the same high notes and low notes
Yeah,
with it.
exactly.
And in
You're
the
not like a fully ranged
with You're
vocalist,
Welcome
right?
being like one of the more memorable songs from the original, it's like, yeah, like when he has to sing, he just has this kind of big barrel-chested brassy "You're Welcome" thing that he's able to do, and the rest is rapping, and the rapping's actually quite good. In this one, his singing is just not good.
No.
Like it's
they
just
really
weak.
overextended his range in terms of what he could do.
It's not even like it felt really like, I don't know if it was out of his range or
I think it was like slightly out of his range.
It was out of his range, but it was also kind of monotone. Like he didn't have the same ups and downs with it. It was
Which
like,
is crazy to say it's out of your range, but it's also like not going
flat,
anywhere.
but it also didn't sound good, and the rapping was bad. And at that point, before like when the girl like busts a rhyme about the scientific method, I'm like, oh, this is a thing for children. They're explaining science to children because this was supposed to be a children's show. That's whatever. This thing is like, oh no, it's bad now. Like the rapping is bad. I remember, like, it was so bad that I kind of, like, stopped paying attention.
Yeah,
like,
I can't remember the hook of the song either.
It was so uncomfortable, like...
People got up to, like, leave and go to the bathroom.
That happened. People, like, were like, I can probably piss in the 2 minutes it takes for them to get over this nonsense.
It was awful. You know what? Okay, so...
Have you ever had someone try to, like, in high school, there was this kid who used to, like freestyle, and I think people convinced him to do it because it was like, I guess kids nowadays would say very cringe.
Right.
And so they would convince him to do it so they would laugh and they would be like, hype him up and like, oh no, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And poor guy couldn't tell the difference. But he couldn't tell the difference, so he thought everyone liked it. So he would just, in high school, would like freestyle always. And like watching this movie, I felt like I was back in high school watching this kid.
God. Yeah, Hunter
this like 14-year-old.
Like visibly
I was like curling up and like,
because Hunter cannot handle the cringe, so she's like doing this and like
you can like visually see it on me.
So what I was gonna say was, okay, listen, I'm not saying that white girls can't rap. All right. Calliope, Mari, you're the exception today. But, like, these two white girls cannot write a rap song. I'm sorry. It's, like, even Calliope is sometimes on thin ice, and she has written more rap numbers than these two white girls have. So I'm just saying, no! Why? Get back forward in time. We had to do a little bit of a disclaimer, but because I was like, white girls shouldn't write rap. But obviously, it's not even their fault because they were hired to do a job that they were not qualified for. So what are they supposed to do? Like, they did their best.
The thing, though, is that, like, I think they're perfectly qualified
to do rap songs, though. If they don't have that in their arsenal already, I would say that's not like circumspect.
maybe not the rap songs, but the
like,
other songs probably,
like
yeah. And if people had different expectations and it was like the Moana TV show and they didn't get screwed around as much as they did, I think this would look way better on the resume. But as it stands, like, they're young.
Yeah.
They're like just starting out. They're only in like their 20s, right?
Bad.
And it's like I feel really bad for them as much as, like, I've been harping on how I really don't like the music in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, no, like Disney screwed these two women
hard. It's bad, right?
Really, really, really. And I feel so awful for them because I think they'll be able to, I hope they'll be able to recover. But like, if this becomes, like, if this movie fails.
If this is their legacy, like.
If this leaves a black stain on their abilities, then, like, that's just so unfortunate.
Yeah, and so I guess now we're going to transition into just wrapping up the end. So Maui brings up the island and Moana tries to touch the island, but they fail. And so Moana instead
swims to the bottom,
or her shell thing that her sister gave her. Like, she has her shell necklace from the first movie, but her sister put a starfish in it, falls out, and that's how she gets the idea to go and touch the bottom. And she gets struck by lightning, and then the spirits of the ancestors all come in and bring her back.
When Maui goes down and grabs her, that which was a nice song. It's also in a language I cannot speak.
But that was like the only good song.
But it was like, it was kind of like, it was like, oh yeah, this is like, I dig it. It's like, it was very beautiful. Like the vocal arrangements were very beautiful.
And so you have all the past wayfinders and then grandma. So here's what was the confusing part. So Moana gets a golden tattoo and her aura is enchanted like Maui. But Moana, when she's brought back to life, asks, so does this mean? And then Maui says, my tattoos are still better than yours. So they completely dip the question, which I think was supposed to be, does this mean I'm a demigod now or something?
Which
and
that's not how demigod works. Like a demigod is when you're half human, half god.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I guess you could technically get demigod powers
Moana's
in this universe.
mom cheated on her husband.
No, I think that the implication was, if anything, that she was given godhood for an act of bravery, which is fine, but Moana starts to ask the question and gets interrupted by Maui, and so the reality is that we don't actually know what the tattoo means. I'm
which I feel like they would explain it later in the
TV show.
In the TV show. I will say that the tattoo she got was super cool. It looked like
I wonder how they're gonna do it like in the parks, because with her
gets
new
a fun new
updated
design,
outfit,
which is fun.
Yeah, so
I could see
maybe
like
a sleeve
I
or
could see
something,
some
right?
like really big Moana fans getting that tattoo.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, but it's also cultural, so like if you're white, maybe don't do that.
Maybe don't do
like,
that.
Maybe don't
I mean, how cultural is it?
But it's
really?
probably a bit more accurate. Like Maui's tattoos are accurate, so I wouldn't suggest it.
I don't know. I mean, with the obvious like cultural appropriation caveat, but also presumably the biggest fans of Moana, the character, might also be themselves Islanders.
You know who you are. If you're good, you're good, right?
I wasn't like, I'm gonna whip out to the tattoo parlor tonight.
So the best song in the entire movie is the one they sing at the end, which is just the like song from the first movie, like the We Know the Way song reprise.
Being like, hey, remember Moana?
And that's the first time
liking that
the theater got loud, and it felt like it wasn't just karaoke tracks layered under the singers, and the orchestration actually was powerful, which was fucking crazy
the
because
songs were so
at the very end, the orchestra actually matched the singers. Oh, did I already mention? I probably did. Like, everybody knows that they're singing and there is no, like, natural occurring musical number. They are all aware that they are singing all the time, which is super forced, and I hate that because that's not how a musical should be. And this sort of, like, 2-song per episode thing is not conducive to musical theater. But anyway, and so the movie ends, right, with, and I thought this was beautiful, you can see Moana call all the different tribes, and then they swim towards her, and that would be really interesting setup for the pilot of a TV show, where supposedly you would imagine, right, that Moana then goes out and, like, communicates with those people, and like, you know, maybe they get through like the language barriers and they learn about each other's culture and all these interesting things.
And you have fun adventures.
You have fun and monster of the week type adventures, right? But that's where the movie ends, when it felt like that was really the beginning, right, of something really interesting.
Which brings me back to my original point of, we already did this. At the end of the first Moana, the assumption is, oh, we're going to be sea bears again. Like, we're going to go out and find each other. You could have started the Moana whatever 2 at the ending of Moana 2. Of like, there's a big world.
Mean. Like, obviously, what they did was they sabotaged the ability for them to find each other.
Yeah.
But, like, you didn't have to
You didn't need to do that, because
anyway.
the assumption was like, oh, because, like, there was that historical period that the film is based off of. Like, oh, that's the end of it. It's not like, oh, actually, 4 years later is when the actual end of it is. I don't mind that there's a magical reason, but the pacing was just so poor, because this would be a TV show that has 24 episodes, you would hope, I guess. It's almost like that.
And that you would, oh, this is the end of the pilot, and now every single week is going to be meeting a new culture and going to a new place.
It's like the first episode of a cartoon where it's like the first episode of My Little Pony where all the ponies get together and you
have to
maintain
set up all that,
what the premise of the show will be.
Yeah.
Like, but that's like if My Little Pony did it twice. Like, they did it like, oh, everyone comes to Ponyville. Next episode, oh, everyone comes. Like, they did it twice, which seems odd.
The My Little Pony.
I don't know why, because it's like, it's a children's animated musical show that's way better than this one, despite being older and with way skinnier a budget. I don't know.
So now let's talk about the post-credit scene, okay?
Which is like shot for shot very similar to the end of Avengers.
Yeah, so, okay.
Which is weird.
I don't know anything about that, but okay, so We do
if you
not see the
movie,
ocean man, like Poseidon adjacent man, this entire time, right? Even when he's sabotaging Moana, he just has lightning, so we don't get to see him. So the end of the movie is like him chastising the bat lady for like, how did you let them find each other? And she's like, I don't know, which obviously she does. I'm not saying that her motivations are confused. Clearly what they were going for was that she was a double agent, but like kind of secretly on Moana's side, that's fine. But then they're like, this isn't going to be the last of me. And I'm like, yes, it fucking is, unless they make Moana 3. Yes, it is going to be the last of you. It was so clearly setting up for a TV show, right? Because then that's like the stereotype is that you have like the big bad, right? But then you have kind of the side character who's clearly going to get like, or the side villain, I should say, who will clearly get a redemption arc and join the bad guys by the end. Like, okay, this may be weird, but like She-Ra does that, you know, like
Zuko.
that sort
It's
of thing.
Zuko.
The Zuko
I don't know if she was going to do Zuko. My thought was...
I think she was because she hated that guy. She was like, oh my God, I'm trapped by this man.
The vibe I got from her was like, oh, I helped Moana out because I assumed they were going to take you out, and if you're out, then I can leave my imprisonment.
Yeah.
So my guess was that she was like, my guess for the premise of the now defunct, I suppose, Moana TV show is that she would endeavor to take out that guy and become the ruler herself.
However, there's something that kind of goes against that, and that's like she says, oh, I can finally leave, and he's like, LOL, nah, I don't think so, bitch, right? Which goes against like the deal that they had of her imprisonment or whatever. She's really giving like Calypso Greek mythology vibes, where like she was punished to stay on an island all by herself.
Cerise?
No, not Cersei. Calypso.
Cersei.
Yeah, Calypso. I know my epic, the musical lore. Anyway, and so, yeah, like, I don't think that she would be like, and I want to take him out to be a big bad. I feel like she literally just wants to be free.
I mean, we'll never know.
And then Tamatoa shows up.
As like, and he's voiced by Matt Berry again, and he's like, I'm back here again. I think that's Matt Berry.
Hopefully, I don't know.
He's being silly, and it's almost to like undercut the moment. Where it's like, hey, isn't this kind of dumb?
Well, they had to undercut the moment because we're not coming back. There is no, oh, I'll show her. Like, these guys are not coming back.
But also, the villain was on a throne, and there was someone, like, lower who was, like, groveling at his feet, which was the vampire lady, who's the most interesting new character they brought in, and they totally squandered her, which is such a shame. I hope we see her again in some capacity if they actually do like learn their lesson and make a Moana show.
Yeah.
But like the framing was exactly like the end credit scene to the Avengers film where you first see Thanos. Like the coloring was the exact same. And like the zoom into his face was the exact same. It was uncanny.
Yeah.
That like it was all because when do Disney films have post-credit sequences?
Well, they do sometimes, but they're usually like a little joke. Like they're not
setting it up.
So it's not like the MCU. Like that's weird.
So the fact that they had those comparisons to the like most famous post-credit scene of all time leads me to believe that this was like an intentional, out-of-pocket, weird parody of the Avengers
maybe it was
end credit scene, which I can only assume, but like that's another weird and appropriate like modern reference. And it's not like it's Hercules or Shrek where the joke is that it's the past, but it's also the present.
And I hate that, by the way, but that's another
like
story.
I let it slide. I mean, Shrek's fun.
No, I hate that. Hercules is fine because we all know Greek mythology, but I don't like it for like mythologies that have not really been explored by like modern media. Does that make sense? Like I don't like Emperor's New Groove and how they could have dove into like Aztec and like Inca, like that sort of mythology, and instead they just made it like Hercules, where they did like modern. Oh, the Inca civilization was America and had a football field and a stadium and homecoming
that
and
movie's
cheerleaders.
Being saved. Oh, for the TV show.
Right, but like also in the movie, it's like that too. They go to a diner.
That's true.
So, yeah.
I mean, I will spare that one because it's very funny, and that feels more Shrek to me.
I hate the Emperor's New Groove.
I think I only saw that one recently, and I thought it was very funny. That leans more Shrek. To me, it's like do one or the other. Like either be Shrek and be Emperor's New Groove, and be these films that are like, oh, they're purposefully being silly.
Yeah.
Bridgerton's also kind of like that with like the pop songs in the background. Or like be very serious and very into tone, which is kind of what the first Moana was.
Yeah.
Don't run the middle.
Yeah.
The middle just feels awkward.
And Maui always always made annoying
Yeah.
jokes about like, oh, you have a sidekick and you wear a dress, that means you're a princess.
Or
and,
like in the
you
first,
know, oh, I don't sing and all of that
in the
bullshit,
first
right?
movie, he makes jokes like when you send a message by a bird, it's a tweet, which is weird because tweets don't exist anymore. But also, it's fine because like, oh, that's
It's a Robin Williams
that's a that's a
knowledge.
modern reference, but like it makes sense in the world. Where when they do it here, it's either like, oh, straight up, you shouldn't know that.
Yeah.
Or it's like, is that like a MCU reference? That's weird.
Just weird.
And
I'm
it's like they couldn't pick a tone, and that's
the idea
okay.
of like, oh, we'll see them again. No, we fucking won't, unless they make the Moana show, or God forbid, Moana 3 has the rest of the plot from the Moana show. No, we're not.
Which
really
I
hope this
feel
movie
really bad.
bombs, man.
Yeah.
It needs to bomb. That's why I made this
Here's
video.
the thing:
As
as we left the theater, there was this guy who was with two other people, and he was like, you know, it's not often I say this. He was on a substance, under the influence of a substance that's legal in Canada and not legal other places, I suspect.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know, I don't often say this, but this one was better than the first one. And
the girl that was with him was like, no, the storytelling in the first one was so much better.
Yeah, and it's like everyone looked at him like, are you stupid? And I was like, quietly to myself, I'm like, no, I think he's high.
Yeah.
And it's like, but here's the thing.
And the old lady next to us was like, oh, that was fine, I guess.
Okay.
Like, people are
Didn't
clearly
mind it.
going into this movie not knowing that it was retooled as a TV show, and they're like, oh, this is fine. And like, Wicked is going to slaughter this movie at the box
Wicked
office.
is going to
like,
eat
if
this
you
movie's
take your
lunch.
kids to see anything, even if they're really little kids who love Moana,
Show
it should be
Gladiator.
Wicked. I'm sorry. Like, you know,
Watch
kids
Gladiator
need to
before
see,
watch
I get
this.
it. If you're a big Moana fan,
Save
maybe
your
you'll
money.
still like this.
Save
but
your
go
money.
see Wicked. Wicked
Watch
will change
Sonic.
your life. Right?
Watch Sonic 3. I don't
my
know.
God.
Like,
So-
not, you know, this, I don't think it's going to flop. I think it will underperform.
Right, yeah.
And I
yeah.
think it will go, like, in the same way that, like, Frozen 1 was, like, this brilliant film that everyone couldn't stop talking about for, like, 2 or 3 years in
Yeah.
a row. And I can remember all the songs from it.
Yeah.
And versus Frozen 2 was good, but, like,
Oh.
not nearly as memorable. I think this is going to be, at the very best, going to get a Frozen 2 reputation. At the
Less
very
than
worst,
that, I think.
going to be a flop, probably more in the middle. But don't see it. Wait till it comes out
No,
on
do
streaming.
not go see it. What I was
Pirate
gonna
it.
say is that they reference the first movie an egregious amount. Like, you can have
Oh, yeah.
one, like, Frozen 2-esque Let It Go, or, like, Han's reference, that's fine. But they said how far I'll go 7 times at least.
Oh, yeah, they
right?
did. Yeah.
Every 10 minutes. I'm
And it was
not
like,
joking.
and I
That was one of my
groaned
other
every
points.
time.
So that was really annoying. And
You know what
you
I'm-
talking about Frozen reminded me,
Yeah.
because like Frozen does it once where Elsa's like covering her ears as she's listening to herself singing Let It Go in the snow memory sort of thing where she's
Yeah.
remembering her past. Like, that's fine, but the frequency at which they reference the better movie was ridiculous. Oh, but what I wanted to say, sorry to interrupt you, Hunter.
go
Like
ahead.
I said, we're not used to talking together. It's
Yeah.
been a while, so we're just both unhinged today. So here's the thing. Art, to me, should make you feel something, right? Even if it is anger, okay? Like, even if you're mad, at least that is an emotion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, even with Wish and how terrible it was, at least I went home and did something productive with my life, where I thought about the themes and why they were bad, and thought about what would have made a better movie and why. You know what I mean? Like, at least I could say, oh, this is what this movie was trying to go for. This fucking sucks. How would I change this? How would I make this better? And like, thousands of people have tried to rewrite the songs and the story and all that stuff, because you saw the nugget of like a good idea that Disney had clearly sanitized, especially with like Magnifico brainwashing the population. But instead of people being brainwashed, they're just kind of boring. That's something they literally say in the movie. I know Hunter hasn't seen it. Like, you know, for example, Magnifico
I haven't
crushes somebody's...
I haven't heard great
No,
things from you, Cal. I gotta be totally honest with you.
crushes somebody's wish, and you think that would kill them and create high stakes, but it doesn't. They're just sad, and they have a little achy in their chest. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't want to go too dark, because they realized that Magnifico is supposed to be a commentary on, I think, corporations, and how, like, there's this sort of,
Made
like,
by
oh,
Disney,
they will
which-
take your dreams away from you and promise that they'll make them happen, but you're the only one that can do that. And there's a very interesting message in there, buried, because obviously Disney didn't want to go as far
I
as
bet
they
you the
should have, right?
songwriters of Moana 2 feel that way now. They can relate. They're
Oh
the
my
one
God,
person who can
yeah,
relate to that
right?
movie.
And so, like, you you know, you look at Wish and you see interesting lines and interesting concepts and you see Starboy and you see the scraps, and at least you go home and you're kind of angry, or at least think about the scraps in a creative way. But like for this, like obviously I'm gonna do song analysis videos for it because it's my job, but like even if it wasn't my job, for Wish I would still be thinking about these things, because at least bad art can influence you in terms of how to make good art. What am I supposed to take away from this when I'm constantly trying to remind myself what happened in the movie? Like I can't even remember, and it's gonna like literally leave my memory in a week, and the only thing that, like, the only reason I'll remember it is because I will be doing song analysis videos for it, probably. But otherwise, like, it didn't make me feel anything at like any point. Like I can't even say that I'm that like mad. It was just like, oh no, like it was just sort of nothing. It was just a big nothing. And it didn't make me feel anything, because how, like, even if I was like, oh, I guess I could rewrite this or rewrite that, at the end of the day, this isn't a movie. Like, it's literally a TV show. And so, like, as a TV show, it's perfectly serviceable. So I have no interest in rewriting that, especially because the difference between a musical and then a TV show-esque musical is that a TV show does not need to, or I guess I should say, a musical in the opening number has to set up the thematic question that we will be answering through the entire movie. So in Hunchback, it's what makes a monster and what makes a man, right? Like very clear. In Moana, it's the idea of like Moana like leaving the island for something better. Like everybody on the island is complacent, but she wants something more, and like that whole thing. Beauty and the Beast, like it's pretty obvious, like with Belle and everything, right? In terms of the town kind of thinking that she's a weirdo, and then also we know that the Beast is cursed and they're both outcasts and stuff. So you set up like for Who Could Ever Learn to Love a Beast, right, in the prologue of the movie, and then the ending of the movie, you have Tale as Old as Time reprise answering the thematic question of who could ever learn to love a beast. It's Belle. Like we get the answer. Hunchback has the reprise of Bells of Notre Dame, where it's what makes a monster and what makes a man, instead of who is the monster and who is the man, right? So all of these movies, for the most part, have some sort of like presentation of a question, right, or a theme, and like trying to make you think about that theme. And by the end of the musical, you should understand in the finale why we went on that journey. Hadestown presents It's an Old Song, right? Like, and we're singing and all of that stuff. And then the ending is like, this is why we sing the song. We sing it to, you know, keep going, to provide hope, even though it's a tragedy, we sing it anyway. You have a full circle moment where it still feels like you went on a story arc, but at the same time, we're returning to where we started thematically in order to answer the question. Does that make sense? Obviously, we've gone on this whole journey, and the beginning is very clearly different to the end, but we at least return to the question. I could not really tell you what the thematic question of this movie was, because it didn't have a concrete opening number other than the song in the village, and I guess the We're Back is supposed to be the song to Who We're Meant to Be, but the problem is that they use the reprise from the original movie.
Because this is just the same movie again.
So like, oh, Who We're Meant to Be is the people that we found out at the beginning of the first movie. So as a result, it's like, oh, there was no thematic question here. It wasn't like that this was a new heightened song. Like, what could have sold me maybe was if they had done the We Know the Way, but in all of the different languages of the different wayfinders. Like, something like that maybe could have sold me, because then the idea would have been, oh, you evolved the thematic question. It's not just about us, but about all these other tribes and all these different people, right? But you just have the same song from the first movie answering the thematic question of this movie, but the question was nothing. Who we're meant to be is who they were at the end of the first Moana. It doesn't make any sense. We didn't go anywhere. I didn't need to learn anything. I already knew this. What are you talking about? And so that's the final thing that I wanted to say that really bothers me is, as a musical, like as a movie, failure because it's a TV show. As a musical, it's horrendous because the songs are not in service of the story. The songs are in service of a 2-song per episode mandate. And it's so obvious. It's even more obvious than Has Been Hotel. At least Has Been Hotel kind of has an opening number, right, where they try to establish, and I have problems with Happy Day in Hell. I've talked about it, but at least they tried. And then at the finale, you have the Happy Day in Hell type reprise where everybody is talking about
like
fixing the hotel.
inside of every demon is a rainbow from the pilot. Like, they do a better job of it.
Yeah, it's crazy that I'm saying that because I criticize those songs so much, but like, at least Has Been Hotel tries to return to the thematic question that it posed at the beginning of Happy Day in Hell, but this movie returns to it with a song from another movie. It's crazy. What the heck?
And it's funny because you're right. Like, I didn't realize it, but like that last song was like, yeah, it sounded really nice. So it's almost like, ending impressions are really important. You can kind of forgive a soft middle if like the beginning is strong and the ending is strong. So I think they just use the better songs from the better movie at the end to make you forget about how you just sat through the least memorable movie I think I've ever seen. Like I don't even know what a metaphor is. It's like a vacuum.
Yeah,
it's
nothing.
Like,
I can't remember anything. I can't remember a single hook. I can't remember how any of the songs go other than the Moana one, but that's because I listened to it to talk about it in a YouTube short. And guys, I can't stress enough that my memory is not like that. When I'm locked in, when I hear a song for the first time, I can recite it back to you. I don't remember anything. So, in conclusion,
this movie is just it's
a black hole of a movie. It's
not like some movies it's too cold out, some movies it's too hot out, some movies it's just cold enough, it's brisk, it's nice. Some movie it's just nice and warm, you can go to the beach. This movie is the exact middle of temperature.
Yeah.
It is neither warm nor cold. It is nothing. You step outside and the air feels like nothing. You pass through it, you don't even think about it. I'm gonna forget. You know what this movie's gonna be?
What?
A really difficult trivia question in 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, what was the name one song off of
I know. Disney Cruise trivia is gonna be crazy now.
Yeah, what's gonna, like, the hardest questions are gonna be the ones about, like, what Disney animated princess feature came out in the winter of 2024. And no, that was earlier. I'm like,
or just even like on the cruise, they have like
that
song
was later.
trivia.
Yeah.
Whoosh.
This is just gonna be a hard trivia question. Cause like, where else are you gonna ever see it? Are you gonna rewatch the movie? Not unless you're like unless you're the parent of very little children or children themselves. In that case.
Like, I rewatch the Tangle show all the time. I would not rewatch this. I would rewatch it for work, and that's the only exception.
Not only would I not rewatch this, in 10 years, I can remember Moana. I will probably forget I saw this movie.
Not even 10 years. Give it a week and we'll forget.
I'll probably remember just because I'll remember making this video with you, and I'll be like, yeah, we made a video about was it like a TV show? Was it like a Kingdom Hearts thing? Was it a fan animated project? Did Cal write really bad Moana fan fiction and I just went along with it? It's gonna escape my memory.
Yeah.
Because that's what this movie is, a deeply unmemorable movie. And because it's so nothing, I kind of can't get mad about it. But it's so nothing that it's almost impressive.
Like, I can get mad that it's...
Like, it's a movie you couldn't point to in a police lineup.
Like, Moana just deserved better, man.
Because Moana was such a brilliant movie.
Oh, God.
They could have left it alone. They could have had a TV show. It would have been fine.
Yeah, and like,
why
the
did they
TV
just
show
not have it
would
as a
have
TV
gotten
show?
more time to cook, right? But, like, they wanted something that made money because Wish did bad and then Raya did bad. I think they're really worried, which is hilarious that they're worried about, like, the Disney princess brand right now, but at the same time they have zero intentions of creating a new movie musical princess project. The only musical that we know is Frozen, and then there's one original Disney animated feature in development for 2026, I believe. But like, otherwise, you have dropped the ball on the princesses, and now you're like pulling Moana like out of the basement of Magic Kingdom to come rescue you,
dragging her spent corpse
and so I'm
to
like,
puppet around at us for an hour and a half.
This is ridiculous. Like, I understand because of Wish and because of Raya, they want to make sure the princesses are still relevant.
And
but this is not the way. Make a good musical, bestie.
Like, Disney's in trouble because like they've had trouble at the parks, like Disney movies, like the Pixar
Muppets ride is getting taken
Pixar
down.
films have been like a little like, I think Inside Out 2 did okay, but some of the other ones didn't do as strong. Elementals evened out, but still it wasn't a runaway. And like the general takeaway people got from Elementals is that it was a flop, even though it wasn't. It did okay.
Yeah, like it was marketed poorly and eventually found its audience internationally. But
the MCU films are not, in my mind, quality going down that dramatically, but their box office return has been going down.
Well, all also the problem with the MCU is that they've polluted it with so many TV shows that even hardcore fans like my mom has like kind of fallen out of it because it's like, oh, you get a movie like, let's be generous and say every 2 years, right?
Yeah, like
you can keep up with, but all of these like little side TV shows, like my mom's totally fallen out of it, and she loves Marvel stuff.
For a while, it was like 2 movies a year. Then they bumped it up to 3, which is fine. And then there was like 3 movies, but also like 4 TV shows. And like, that's like the TV shows is around when I stepped back from the Marvel movies as well. And like Star Wars, they kind of shot that one in the knee as well. And a lot of the, like Disney's running, I think the reason why they turned it into like they wanted to make a movie is either because they wanted more money or that they were like, our TV shows are a little oversaturated right now. Let's maybe like reconsider this going forward.
I think it's 2 things, right? I think it's actually both of those things. Shay Frellis, who I mentioned at the beginning of the video, made a video, I'm pretty sure it was him, of like Disney Plus is killing Disney because people are like, oh, well, I'll just wait until it's on Disney Plus. Whereas, say, for the Barbie movie, I didn't get to see it in theaters because I was at the end of musical theater school, and where can I stream it now? I literally could not tell you, right, in terms of it being in Canada. But
HBO Max, so not in Canada, because HBO Max does not exist in Canada in the way it does in the United States.
Shay Frellis' argument is that because everyone knows it's going to be out on Disney Plus, it's like less of that sort of scarcity where it's like, oh, if you don't go see the Barbie movie in theaters, who knows if it's going to be there like for you on your preferred streaming service. But if you have Disney Plus, all of your Disney things will eventually become on there, right? Like will eventually go there. So unless something is really pressing, you can just wait because you know where it's going to be. And so I think that in combination with Shay Frellis' point, on top of that, streaming just doesn't make as much money as the theater does, you know? And so it's like
streaming is fundamentally an unsustainable business model.
But like it's kind of too little too late when it's going to take at least like until 2026 to get something that is possibly, if we're talking about just a Disney animated, possibly a musical, it might not be. Possibly a princess movie, it also might not be.
To be totally honest with you,
there's no plans for any animated feature other than Frozen and an original project that we have no information about. Like the next princess movie could be 2028, and as someone who loves the princesses, concerning. Think about the gap between Princess and the Frog and then Mulan or Hercules or whatever. Like that was a really long time.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know.
And we're so fucked, and I love the princesses, and so I'm mostly focused on them and like not like, obviously like non-princess movies have also been musicals like The Lion King, but I'm like, we're so screwed. All we have is Frozen 3. Oh my God, like we're so fucked in terms of Disney being like the provider of fairy tale, wish fulfillment, musical theater, animated.
The reality of it is that people still want that, so other studios are going to come up and make those movies better than Disney.
Video, but we're kind of getting off topic now. Well, hopefully Spellbound's good. I'm gonna try to watch it sometime this week, but I got sidetracked by how terrible Arcane was, which you guys can watch on the main channel if you've gotten this far. But
I'm here as well.
Done probably. I think we're good.
Don't see it.
Don't
save your money.
Please
it's not good.
Money.
Least memorable thing. It doesn't bode well for Disney.
No.
In the short term or the long term. My only guess is that this movie probably didn't cost very much to make.
Yeah, which is also kind of suspicious because you paid people TV show rates
and then they
made it a movie.
Which,
so did those people get? I don't know.
I don't know.
I can't say anything that happened behind the scenes, but it's just a little weird, isn't it? I wonder if we'll ever hear about that sometime. But anyway,
I'm sure we will.
I guess we'll see you guys in the next one. This has been Calxiyn and Hunter, caring way too much. An hour and 40 minutes too much. And we will see you next time. Bye.